title that came to me, because for me, this is like the capital of free expression. Yeah, 70,000 of us here. Let me say that again. I need to hear you. Is this the capital of free expression, of creative expression? Thank you. So actually, the title is called Tending the Sacred Fire, the Origins, Repression, and Revival of Freeform Movement. And so, has anyone seen this study of 120 babies? It was done about a year ago from the National Academy of Scientists. And they put these little electrodes on 120 babies of all different backgrounds, and they asked their parents to be completely still while they filmed these babies. And they wanted to find out, really, what is it that we're innately born with? What do we respond to? So they put on Mozart, and the babies didn't really respond to that on a movement level. Melodious voices, nothing really happened. But unanimously, 120 babies, they started to move everywhere in their body. Turn that up, David, for a moment. So let me see you. What was your original movement? 6 billion people on the planet, they found, are born with that creative rhythm, that reflex, that little reflex. A little dance battle here. These dance babies against these dance babies. And these dance babies. It's the pulse. So remember that game? It was called Freeze Dance. Do you remember it? So shake it up for more and more. MCs at Burning Man, yes. So remember freeze dance? You remember freeze dance? When the music stops, you stop. Here we go, David. And no, really freeze. Really freeze, because the thing that many of you may know, but that people who will be watching potentially TED, which is such an amazing window into things that we've actually either forgotten or need to remember, or need our paradigm to be shifted, or our lens to be cleansed, is that a lot of people don't know that for about 2,000 years, there was a systematic repression of freeform movement, not the stylized movement that you had to do, but that thing you were born with, that was actually repressed systematically for 2,000 years. And if we go to the origins of that, first we have to know in ourselves that if we say, like, well, when did we start dancing? Well, we know the animals dance. We know we live in a dancing universe. But for me, it begins with when we were able to make fire. And the carbon dating for when we were able to make fire is much longer than perhaps you and I heard or learned when we were in school. It's as long as 1.7 million years ago we have evidence of carbon dating ability to make fire. 800,000 years, 400,000 years ago, we were able to make fire. And we know what happens when we make fire. We dance around the fire. Yes? Yes. So that's in our cells. 800,000 years we've been moving. And in ancient Greece, ancient Rome, gradually ecstatic dancing became more and more controlled. And actually, the first 3 centuries of early Christian worship was completely in dance and movement. And then in the 4th century AD, the Archbishop of Constantinople, he started to restrict that movement in the church, to limit the movement. In fact, even if you were a woman, you had to tie your hair up, because if your hair was down, you might start dancing. And the thing is that the dance continued inside the church for about 1,000 years. And it was really at the beginning of medieval times that the clampdown that really lasted and is still on this earth, the clampdown of that original movement. And during medieval times, the dance got pushed from the church. There were no pews. I don't know if you knew that. Pews were 18th century. There were no pews in the church. And that movement got pushed to outside the church courtyard. And then you could only dance on certain holy days that you were told when you could dance. And then you were told how to dance, right? Well, the people wouldn't have it. And after the Black Plague, and after there really was several hundred years of a great illness that was called melancholia, which is really what we would call depression today. And the people just couldn't take it anymore. And there was a wave of dance mania that happened all over Europe that was basically people shaking their healing power back into their body. And so even though there were over 1,000 laws in Europe that continued and unfortunately got spread through colonialism, it's really a very jaw-dropping history. And if you've ever been into any former colonies in the world, it's hard to imagine in cultures of the entire African continent, or in South America, or in the Caribbean, or in Polynesia, or in Australia, or even in the Americas, that something so intrinsic as drumming and dance could actually be banned. We probably don't even know that in the 1700s in Boston, even Christmas was banned for 30 years. It was really a 12-day holy day, and there was so much festivity that it had to be stopped, right? 1,000-year tradition of Devadasi, temple dancing, in India was outlawed in the 1920s, and it was almost to a point of extinction before it was revived again with independence. In Ghana, when I lived in Ghana for a year, I actually went to some of the villages that were still just recovering from the ban on drumming that was all over the African continent. And see, that really kind of continued into our own culture, and really the incredible revival of freeform movement that is alive in all over the planet, with Burning Man being such an extraordinary blazing example. That really began, if we can trace it back, to a really pivotal time when the tide became stronger than the level of repression and control. It really was the rock rebellion. What happened in the rock rebellion when rock music was banned from radios, banned from towns, censored on TV, is that there was a movement that came with rock, and that was the same movement that we were born with. It was that free-form movement. It was breaking down barriers of ways that we had to move and putting us in touch with the creative spirit that we're born with. So there's actually an incredible story that you don't find being broadcast on CNN. And it's a story that is the exact opposite of something that I think every human alive should think about at this juncture, which is that fear doesn't move. Have you ever noticed that? When you're afraid, it's the absence of movement. And how could you stop something that is so good for us? Every time we dance, there's a cascade of serotonin, a cascade of natural joy and bliss. Neural pathways are made when we are babies from our movement, from our creativity. It bonds us. It syncopates us. That's a power of entrainment that is something that shouldn't be held back, but should be available for everybody to access. And this is the good news, is that never before on this planet have there been so many people in free-form movement. Really. Like, it's something extraordinary. It's actually incredibly positive. We've never seen this before in 2,000 years. That's a good omen. It's a good omen, yeah? Yeah, and that's the fire that our ancestors have tended inside us. That's the fire that's in all of us. And it's in ourselves. We don't have to learn it. It's inside us. So for me, I'm interested because I left kind of a doctoral program to become a yoga teacher 21 years ago, and it was so not popular. People rolled their eyes when you said you're a yoga teacher. They were like, right. And for me, I was always interested when I saw people in movement as to what was repressing them, what was binding them. When given the choice back to them of like, okay, now allow that creative energy that's your life force to move through you. People sometimes like, I don't know what to do with myself. I don't know, I don't move, I'm not a dancer, right? We think that's something unique. We should investigate that memory, right? Because that inhibition could be a conditioning. It could be a layer. We could all be buying into it. You know, if you're cool, if you're intellectual, you don't move. But for me, what I've seen again and again is that creative spirit of movement. It's what all 6 billion people on the planet were born with. We were born with it for a reason. And when you move, and when you dance tonight, and when we dance all night together tonight, right? You give that kindling that is your life. Any of the tensions, the barriers, the prayers, you give that kindling to your fire of your creative spirit through movement, through music. It's that pulse of the playa, yeah? Oh, David, hit us up. So let's rise up, yeah? So we have this project called the Movers and Shakers Project. For the last 10 years, every time we do yoga trance dance, it's for a purpose. So in the next several decades, yeah, let's make a circle in the center. Okay. Come closer, come closer. Yes. So go into your fire now. So I love if you can just say with me, 6 billion people alive. 6 billion people alive. Are creative, rhythmic, dancing beings. Yes. And this is the fire that's going to help us choose not toxic, limited, poisoning energy resources, but that which is natural and renewable and is generating extraordinary joy and creativity in each one of us. Thank you so much.